I'm Alex Sujong Laughlin, and on every episode of my new podcast, Try Hard, I'm talking to someone about something they've always wanted to do, but haven't. Yet. First, we dig into why they want to do it and what's been getting in the way. And then, we set a challenge for them. You can listen to Try Hard from Defector Media and Radiotopia wherever you find podcasts.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
There's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
Wow.
Oh, good for you. I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Hello, hotties, and welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the spiciest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they had transpired today? I'm your co-host, Sarah Sahagian.
And I'm your other co-host, Sadaf Hassan. And today we are going to tackle Miss Glinda, or Glinda herself, aka Ariana Grande. Sarah, hit me with your immediate thoughts on our gal.
I think, and I mean, I'm going to be ageist about myself. I think maybe generationally, I missed the cutoff to be a super fan. So I am aware of her biggest hits, right? I'm aware of Problem. I'm aware of Thank You Next. I love Santa Tell Me. That's actually a really underrated Christmas song.
Yes.
Awesome Christmas song. However, I've never been to an Ariana Grande concert. I don't think I ever would go. I can recognize her singing, but I didn't grow up watching Sam and Cat. So I feel like today I'm probably going to learn a lot from you, Sadaf.
Yay. I love to be educational, Sarah. I actually love a lot of her music, but I was not a fan of the shows back then. I also didn't pick up onto her music until she went quite popular around the Dangerous Woman era. And obviously, I love picking up on love triangles and that kind of stuff, and she's offered us so many. So, and we're going to get into a bit of all that. But to begin, let's start at the beginning. Ariana, who is currently 31, which feels shocking to me. I feel that both she should be younger and older, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was born and raised in Boca Raton, Florida, which you can sometimes pick up in her American accent. Pay attention to the way she says Florida, you'll see it. Her family, to fans, is almost as notorious as she is, so let's go over some of them. There's her mom, Joan, who is the CEO of a marine communications equipment company that has been in the family forever and actually made them fairly wealthy. So she's always come from money, which I always find to be an interesting fact. Her dad owns his own graphic design firm. So, pretty cool couple. She also has an older half brother named Frankie, who I got to know well before her, shockingly, thanks to Big Brother. Shout out to Big Brother. I love you. He was a cast member back in 2014 and was actually very fun to watch. Yeah. He was so annoying, and he definitely is very much like the sibling in the shadows. I'm so sorry to say that. Bit of an Ashley Simpson pieces of me callback. Sorry. But yeah, he's definitely an interesting character. His professional title today is entertainer. Okay, make of that what you will.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, many of us know him better as the kind of sibling who loves to catch a ride on a coattail or two. That is the nicest way I can put it. But Ariana is also close to her granny, Marjorie, which I have to mention because she gets name checked in her music a lot, and I don't want the fans to come after me. She seems like a nice lady. Now, the fun and increasingly rare thing about Ariana, to me anyway, is that she always dreamt of being a star. But I don't even mean finding fame necessarily. I mean, she wanted to be on the stage singing and acting. So at age 8, she sang the Star Spangled Banner at a Florida Panthers home game, and that was in 2002, just to get the date set. Her first role with the Fort Lauderdale Children's Theater, adorable, saw her playing Annie, one of my favorite musicals. Soon came The Wizard of Oz, wink wink, and Beauty and the Beast. As a kid, she was even a regular on a cruise ship karaoke lounge, which, like, Fascinating.
That's so
Is that
Florida.
allowed? It's so Florida. So, Sarah, on that note, does this make Ariana's success story all the sweeter to you, or is it kind of weird that an 8-year-old was singing classics on cruises to kind of make it?
It is really weird to me that an 8-year-old was singing classics on cruises. I mean, I guess her family had a lot of money, so they weren't using her to. This is not like a momager situation where they wanted her to support the family. I guess she was living her truth. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is just who she is. She wants to be belting out and all that jazz on a cruise ship. Maybe that's just who she is.
Yeah, I find it really funny and sweet, actually. But at the same time, it does, even though her family had money, and maybe even more so that they had money, I'm a little icked out that they were able to just put her out there at that age. In one way, it's great when you are talented and you know your kids got it. I say nurture that. But to be going so far as cruise ships all the time, I don't know. I don't know. It's
It's weird.
interesting. And we know that she went on to be a star at a young age. So that's always something that gets a side eye from me these days. I don't know. But we'll come back to that a little bit more too. Actually, right now, eventually, at just 15, she was cast in the Broadway musical 13. So that was her first one. And the following year, she was also cast in the Nickelodeon show Victorious, which is kind of incredible that she made it really at that age. She kind of picked up on both things she was so intrigued by. Now, both things co-starred her friend, Elizabeth Gillies, who's also really talented, P.S. Victorious premiered in March 2010 to the second largest audience for a live action series in Nickelodeon with 5.7 million viewers. That's a ton. Victorious was huge. If you were a little older than the target demo, which I think me and Sarah both definitely were,
Yeah.
it was a big deal. Needless to say, it helped turn Ariana into a bit of a young teen idol for kids. But as she told Rolling Stone at the time, quote, "Music has always been first and foremost with me." So that was still her target, even at that age. After the show's first season came to an end, Ariana began putting more time into her music. And some of you might remember this era because she started uploading videos of herself doing covers of songs by Adele, Whitney, Mariah, all to YouTube. And, you know, think about those names. Ariana has a hell of a vocal range. She can hit the whistle register. That's something that I feel like people sometimes forget. Her covering these women is impressive because she can do it. I'm not saying she's as great. I'm just saying the range is up there. Now, of course, she caught the attention of Republic Records, who signed her soon after. It really went swimmingly for her there for a few years. Her initial music included a pop single and some tracks on Victoria's soundtracks, of course, because that's what Disney and Nickelodeon make you do. She also had a duet called Popular Song with Mika. I miss Mika. That song is a kind of spin on Wicked's Popular. Again, a little more foreshadowing. Now, Victorious came to an end in 2013, which I have to imagine was a little bit of a relief for Ariana because she headed back to the stage for a few small shows. Still, that time didn't last. Nickelodeon sucked her right back in with a new sitcom called Sam and Cat, which I bet also came with a hefty paycheck. It co-starred Jeanette McCurdy, who, God, we could do a whole episode on her just alone. She's since written a memoir and she's spoken super extensively about the toxic and abusive atmosphere the network and show provided. Earlier this year, after Quiet on Set, a documentary dissecting the toxicity at Nickelodeon came out on the podcast Podcrushed. Ariana said, quote, "We had some very special memories and we feel so privileged to have been able to create those roles and be a part of something that was so special for a lot of young kids. I think we're reprocessing our relationship to it a little bit now." And it's also worth noting in her memoir, Jeanette kind of puts out a little dig at Ariana. She doesn't get too explicit, but she makes a comment that maybe she wasn't the most fun person to work with. And Ariana had a tendency to steal the spotlight. I don't know, allegedly. Sarah, what do you make of what Jeanette has said about the show and Nickelodeon and how Ariana might have experienced it?
You know what? I do think it is very possible for two people to have different experiences in a work environment. And
True.
so I think you can make space for both of them to be more or less telling their truth, right? Some work environments work for one person and not for another. It's also very possible Ariana was treated better, right?
Yeah.
And that she might not have known that Jeanette was so unhappy or might not have understood it. they were also very young, right? And even if she did know that Jeanette was super unhappy, don't think it was necessarily her responsibility to solve that problem as much as Nickelodeon's and the producers. So I think we can make space for both of them to be telling the truth. As for Jeanette's implication that Ariana wasn't great to work with, a lot of people aren't great to work with when they're in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to dismiss what happened to Jeanette McCurdy. Jeanette McCurdy's been through a lot, okay? She's been through a lot, and it is awful to have a toxic work environment. I think most people have had a toxic work environment at least once, and sometimes more than once. I have so much sympathy for her, but I don't think this is something that we should hold against Ariana forever. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Toxic work environments are the only work environments that I know, believe it or not. And I bet it's very common in Hollywood. And I don't even think she was in her early 20s. I think she was in her late teens at the time. So
Yeah, they were children.
They were kids. And things can get a little catty at that time. This feels like a good little time to take a quick little break. We're going to be right back.
I'm Alex Sujong Laughlin, and on every episode of my new podcast, Try Hard, I'm talking to someone about something they've always wanted to do, but haven't. Yet. First, we dig into why they want to do it and what's been getting in the way. And then, we set a challenge for them. You can listen to Try Hard from Defector Media and Radiotopia wherever you find podcasts.
And we're back. Now, from 2013 on, Ariana delved deeper into her music, and people started noticing and separating it from her Nickelodeon image. She was putting out R&B, for one thing. That is so not the Nickelodeon vibe. She was working with pop hitmakers like Ryan Tedder, Benny Blanco, and Max Martin, and she was collaborating with future loves like Mac Miller and Big Sean. More on that in a very hot second. But things kicked up a notch in 2014 when she sang at the White House at a Women in Soul event and was later invited back by the Obamas for an Easter egg roll event. Now, this might not seem so notable, but I remember when this happened. And oddly, it was something that was making magazine covers, tabloid covers, and it was a big story. I'm not exactly sure why, but I think that she was just such an it girl that year that every move she made just felt chemical. It was something that we were all talking about. It was fascinating. And the timing was good because her next album dropped called My Everything. That had the hit singles Problem, one Sarah likes, Break Free, Love Me Harder, and a collaboration with Jessie J on Bang Bang. Oh, I loved that song. And then it became unbearable after like the first 10 listens. But anyway, it was a summer that was very Ariana Grande. Ariana everywhere all the time. But by the end of the year, she and Adele became the only female artists with 3 top 10 singles simultaneously on the Billboard Hot 100 as lead artists. That is like an intense level of growth in just such a short span of time. And I feel like it's an impressive example of how you can really hit the cultural zenith and kind of be there at the right time. But more on that in a bit. In 2014, she also guested on Saturday Night Live with her legendary impressions. Cue one here. Now, after that, in 2016, we got the delicious album Dangerous Woman, which is my favorite. And it offered up hit after hit after hit. At this point, there was no stopping Ariana's rise. But trouble did come in 2017 when Ariana was performing a concert at Manchester Arena, which became the target of a suicide bombing, which led to 22 deaths and injured hundreds. Ariana suspended the remainder of the show and tour and held a televised benefit concert called One Love Manchester that summer, which raised $23 million to aid the bombing's victims and affected families. The concert also included performances from Liam Gallagher, Robbie Williams, Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, Miley Cyrus. It was a huge show. To recognize her work, the Manchester City Council named her the first honorary citizen of Manchester. She even reportedly declined an honorary UK damehood, which is huge. I would not have said no to that.
No.
She resumed the tour soon after in Paris and wrapped by the fall. I think it was probably a tour that really took a toll on her. I'm amazed that she was able to just do all that in that one year. And that's also around the time when I would say that a lot of comments about her body and how thin she was looking started. I think they were always there, but they really hit a peak around that time. And by the end of the year, Billboard magazine named her Female Artist of the Year. Sarah, how do you think that bombing impacted her? And I hate to ask this, but I kind of feel like I have to ask this. How did it impact her career and her image? Because there was certainly something that changed.
You know what? I think it was she dealt with it really well. It's a terrible tragedy. It's an unthinkable tragedy. It is also traumatic because she was there when it happened, right? I mean, surviving a terrorist attack is awful, and she was able to channel her efforts into helping the families, right? She never, in my experience of consuming media about this, centered herself, even though she was one of the victims. I mean, it happened at her concert. She survived it. So I was always impressed with her, and I found her very dignified. This was a way where I feel like she grew up in my mind. I'd always kind of thought of her as like, I know she wasn't a teenager at the time, but like a teen idol. And then the way she weathered this, I think proved to me that she was an adult. She was mature. She was a role model. I really respected her after this. I am still just never going to be a super fan just because I think generationally, I think I missed the cutoff. But I really respected the way she went to bat for her friends and the way she did this concert in Manchester. I actually remember I was supposed to be live tweeting a reality show that night, and we made the decision not to live tweet it because of this terrorist attack. We felt it was kind of the least we could do not to make bad jokes on Twitter that night, as much as I do love making bad jokes on Twitter. So this is a night that I really remember vividly, and I followed the press coverage very closely, and I was just consistently impressed with how she handled it. What about you?
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's another good example of when often female pop stars end up having so much weight on their shoulders when it comes not to just, I don't just mean when something like this happens, because that's not exactly the most common phenomenon, but she was a representation for so many things. And I think because she became the face of this moment in time, people were holding on to her for some kind of relief just in that moment. And I mean, the fact that Manchester gave her, an honorary citizen badge, the fact that the UK wanted to give her a damehood, it just tells you how much, I would say, celebrities in that time are really relied on to put on a good show and to cheer us all up and to give us something to count on. It's quite a lot to put on one little person, it's immense. And again, maybe it is something that took a little bit of a toll on her by the years. And why wouldn't it? I mean, how could it not? Now, this is a good time for one of my favorite segues ever that I am about to make. Now, some of my favorite paparazzi shots ever, again, sorry to say, are of Ariana returning from the Manchester show on a private jet and into the arms of her boyfriend of the time, Mac Miller. Mind you, up until this point, these two were fairly cagey about if they were together, but it was as if none of that mattered by the time this had happened. So they were collaborating, they were inspiring each other's music, reportedly the song Cinderella on his discography. They were cutely coordinating oversized hoodies. They would be together until mid 2018, so for about 2 years. That was the time she began dating SNL comedian and actor Pete Davidson, who of course we will return to. But that September, Mac would die from an accidental drug overdose, which seemed to have an understandably significant impact on Ariana, who ended her relationship with Pete later the following month. She said her grief was, quote, pretty all-consuming, and that Mac was, quote, the best person ever, and he didn't deserve the demons he had. Before Mac, in terms of her dating history, there was Broadway star Graham Phillips, YouTuber Jay Brooks, singer Nathan Sykes, dancer Ricky Alvarez, and of course Big Sean, which is where the rumors and mythology began that Ariana tends to be something of a boyfriend stealer. Naya Rivera, the Glee star, the late Glee star, made it no secret that when she was dating Big Sean, one day she came home and found Ariana on the couch with him, bringing an end to their relationship. For the record, Ariana was also suspected of quote unquote stealing Mac. And then there's Pete's ex, Cassie David, Larry David's daughter, who also made it clear she was with Pete and realized she wasn't once headlines were made that he was now with Ariana. Let me take a breath because the list goes on. Dalton Gomez, her ex, was also presumed to have been in a relationship, and her current boyfriend, Ethan Slater, might be the most notorious one. They co star in Wicked together, and very notably, he did indeed leave his wife of a decade and newborn child when he started dating Ariana. I won't say for Ariana because I don't want to get sued, but that certainly seems to be the case, allegedly. Now, seeming to acknowledge this history, Ariana dropped a song titled Break Up With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored. And once the Ethan pairing hit, she dropped another song called Yes and. It's a great song. It's a great song. Now, Sarah, is Ariana a serial cheater? Should she be condemned for it? Because I have to say, it does make me a little uncomfortable sometimes when I'm listening to her music, but I don't stop listening. I love listening.
Okay, it's one of those things where when she was in her 20s, like this is just a lot of people just do this in their early 20s. I like honestly,
Yeah.
I feel like because your brain isn't fully developed until you're 25, it doesn't really count as cheating before you're 25, or if it does, it's not an indictment of your character, right?
Yeah.
So the stuff she did when she was really young, whatever, I forgive her. The fact that she's still doing this, I mean, she took up with a man who had a newborn baby, even if it was over, which it does not look like it was. I think in that situation, you need to say to a man, listen, you should not be leaving your wife. You have a newborn, right?
Yeah.
I will not be party to this, right? I think that is a woman who's just had a newborn is very vulnerable. So is the baby.
Yeah.
That's something that really I have a very hard time getting over that. The other thing is it's just the fact that it's such a pattern with someone like Angelina Jolie. I mean, it was her love triangle with Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston was super high profile, but as far as we know, she only broke up, I think, the one marriage. I don't think we have evidence she's broken up more than one marriage, right? So it's not a pattern. It's just one time she fell madly in love with a co-star and he fell in love with her, and then it ended very badly. But when you just keep doing it, it seems like she enjoys it, right? Like it seems like the one thing all these men have in common, because they're all incredibly different, is that they were taken.
Sarah said it, not me. Was I thinking it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, when the pattern carries well into your late 20s, your 30s, it's becoming a thing, right? That you can't deny. And I do feel in a way she's not denying it because she's putting out music riffing on it. And okay, fine, like music isn't always the truth, but I don't know. I feel like there's a side eye coming with all of it and I buy it. And it does kind of make me feel like if I were a friend of hers, I can't believe I'm saying this, I wouldn't be bringing my guy around her, and I'm not that kind of person, but I don't know, maybe she gets off on that kind of thing, you know? She wants to be the top dog, which is also a phrase I never use, but like here we are.
It feels almost like a fetish. And I'm usually, you know what, like have the fetishes you like, but don't hurt other people with your fetishes. And this fetish at this point is clearly hurting people.
Yes, I completely agree. I think with this one, it was also so spicy because fans were just picking it up on it because they knew that this is the pattern that she has. And they noticed that she'd been liking photos of the sky, of his wife's photos that she'd posted of her baby. And like she'd commented saying she was happy to meet him. And then the next thing you know, she's dating him and it's only weeks later. I mean, you know, it gets to a point where you simply can't deny it. I just want to make that clear. We're not just speculating. It's pretty out there. But it's fascinating to me to want to own the image of the other woman. in a way, I do find that artistically fun. I enjoy it in her music. It paints a fun story, but in reality, it's kind of terrible. Like, you don't
Well, it's
sound
just
like a
like I
girl's
do
girl.
think the other woman is unfairly maligned in our society, like the idea of the other woman, because in the immortal words of the great Debbie Reynolds, you cannot take a man who wants to stay.
Yes.
Having
yes.
said that, if you get off on taking men, that doesn't say anything great about you either, right? If you keep
No.
doing it, if this is your thing, right? If this is your pattern, that's also not great.
Yeah, well said. Well said. It is so fascinating. It's become such a key part of her persona. It's odd. But alas, we will delve a little bit back into her love life momentarily. Grab a glass of wine. We're getting deeper into the grande of it all. We will be right back.
I'm Alex Sujong Laughlin, and on every episode of my new podcast, Try Hard, I'm talking to someone about something they've always wanted to do, but haven't. Yet. First, we dig into why they want to do it and what's been getting in the way. And then, we set a challenge for them. You can listen to Try Hard from Defector Media and Radiotopia wherever you find podcasts.
And we're back. P.S. If you are still in the dark, I feel like I have to mention this, but her infamous song, Thank You Next, Ariana name checks a few people. I'm going to go through those bits now because now you should be up to date. Now I Listen and Laugh even almost got married, and for Pete, I'm so thankful. Wish I could say thank you to Malcolm, which is Mac Miller's real name, because he was an angel. Thought I'd end up with Sean, but he wasn't a match. Wrote some songs about Ricky. Now I listen and laugh. Ouch. That alone tells us plenty. Ricky was evidently a starter boy, like Rory's Dean Forrester, while the others came close to apparently being the one. I don't know. It's just, listen, Ariana will drop crumbs and I'll take them all because the fact is that I do want to know more. I'm always going to want to know more. And she knows how to kind of keep us on the edge that way. She knows her love life is a huge part of her persona and her celebrity. So she knows how to keep the story going. It's fascinating to me because there are celebrities like this who say that they've got too much fame. They need to step back. It's all too much. But then they play right into it.
Yes.
Now that, of course, brings me back to the Pete Davidson of it all, because what a goddamn time. It feels like it was just yesterday, but it was actually quite a while ago. This was when Ariana was going real hard with the high ponytail and the lollipop, and even had a song named after him. They had matching tattoos, guys. It was an odd match, in the face of it all, and it had the world deliberating constantly if a man who looks like that can get a girl who looks like that just by being funny. And I do want to say, yes, gentlemen, yes, you can do a lot.
Omar agrees.
Omar is a fan of Pete's, maybe. Yes, you can do a lot just by being funny. We love funny men. It does do a lot, but also be nice. I think Pete might be a nice guy. That's what I gather. Now, these two were engaged for just 4 months, quickly after meeting, and they split in October 2018, taking Pete by shock. Pete did say, though, after Mac died and Ariana left, that he, quote, pretty much knew it was around over. He said, I was like, listen, I get it. Do whatever you've got to do. I'll be here. I think I said, I'll be here until you don't want me to be here. He's been actually quite honest about the whole thing, which I also find really fascinating. But these two catapulted each other into the media at the time. It was a whole thing. It was clear they were having great sex, if anything, I must say. Pete went on to date everyone hot. And Ariana married a real estate agent named Dalton Gomez in 2021, who I noted earlier was also rumored to have been with someone at the time. Yikes. And they also split pretty quickly. They split after a year. On her latest album, Eternal Sunshine, which I also do love so much, she hints that he was not a nice guy and potentially emotionally and mentally abusive. Sir, how do you think, based on this history, a powerful relationship can actually help bolster a celebrity but also hinder it? Because we've discussed this in so many episodes, but clearly there's a really, really fine line, right? Where it can help you, but it can also really damage your reputation. Because I feel like, oddly, these two found the perfect recipe.
Yeah, they did. I think because it was unexpected, so we were interested, right? It definitely had this kind of Beauty and the Geek narrative, although lots of people find Pete Davidson to be really hot. I mean, I don't find him unattractive. I mean, he's a little nebbish in my opinion, but I mean, I like his sense of humor. I like his sense of humor. He has a good personality. He's attractive enough, okay?
Yeah.
But I do think they made an interesting looking pair. They also seem to really like the attention. And I'm not saying that in a judgmental way, but they were very public. They went everywhere together. I mean, I think we saw pictures of them even at amusement parks together, right? Like they were not hiding, right? Then she bought herself that huge ring that obviously he couldn't afford. So they just kept adding fuel to the fire, right? There was always something ridiculous to discuss, which made them a lot of fun. I mean, she did those post-coital Snapchat posts, right?
Yes.
Remember those? I mean, they were leaning in. I think part of this was they were so in love, they wanted to share it and celebrate it with everyone. Part of it was they liked becoming more and more famous together. I think part of it was strategic. I don't think you're sharing as much as they shared of their relationship if you don't like the attention.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be mean or judgmental. I'm just saying that's the way it is. Most celebrities like attention, or else why would you want to be a celebrity?
Absolutely. God, I couldn't have put it better myself. And honestly, another element of Ariana's reputation that has to be named, and I feel like a lot of us don't say it out in the open, but I'm going to put it out in the open today because it's received a fair bit of criticism on social media. It's the way she tends to, for lack of a better word, cosplay different ethnicities. Now, a lot of the time it comes down to her voice. For instance, in her Nickelodeon days, there was no end to her little girl voice. And when she was dating Mac Miller, it was a very strong, dare I say, black scent. And I will give you a little clip of that now, Sarah, and I'd love to hear your reaction to it because the look you're giving me now suggests you don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to play this for you. Here we go.
I'm like, bitch, that's my cookie. That's my juice, okay? Carry on. Thank you, next. That's what this baby picture says.
Now, there are endless more clips, but that's what I have for you. Do you have thoughts?
I mean, I was aware of this issue, of this accusation. This was a time period, I have to say, and I'm not making excuses for her. A lot of celebrities were doing this.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it any less inappropriate, but a lot of celebrities were doing this.
They were.
There was a lot of ethnicity cosplay. There still is, really, and I'm not convinced she's stopped doing this. I'm not the most vigilant watcher of Ariana Grande, but I'm not convinced she's stopped. But this is something that a lot of celebrities do. I don't exactly know why they feel like it's okay to do it. I have to assume part of it comes from the fact that this woman, how much formal education has she been able to receive since she has been working on cruise ships since she was like 8? I think maybe there's an element of ignorance. I'm not trying to make excuses, but I do think there's probably an element of ignorance.
Well, listen, and we've talked about this previously, that for a lot of celebrities, listen, education does not come into it. We know that this girl was on Nickelodeon at the age of, 13, 15? When did she squeeze in school? And how helpful is a few sessions behind closed doors after you film a few scenes? Like, I doubt you're learning all that much. So you make a very good point. She's also been accused of putting on a bit of a Latina look. And more recently, based on her makeup and styling alone, many people have criticized her for attempting an Asian look. I certainly think that's true. And now a cleaned up, quote unquote, generic white look with her blonde, washed out style for Wicked. I just want to remind everybody, Ariana Grande is Italian, okay? Sicilian to be specific. But with so many fans questioning this, she sort of kind of finally addressed it earlier this year in a TikTok comment. She said the reason her voice changes is because she's intentionally changing her vocal placement depending on how much singing she's doing. But I call bullshit.
Really? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, okay, I'm going to mention something here that I don't normally talk about. I'm not trying to do this for attention. So I studied opera when I was younger.
So cool.
And that is not a thing. Yes, you have to save your voice. You have to drink lots of water. You don't go around screaming, right? Like, don't go to a soccer game and scream. But I've never heard anyone say, like, speak differently so you can sing differently. That's not a thing anyone tells anyone.
No, and it reminds me of when she said she keeps her hair up in a high ponytail because it's so damaged from dye jobs on Nickelodeon. I don't know why you would tightly tie your hair back if it was damaged. That seems like the opposite thing to do. I don't know. It's interesting. It's certainly interesting. That's what I'm throwing out there. What I think is so fascinating about all of this is a lot of stars tend to do this, as you've pointed out, Sarah, and I think they all kind of have the same reasoning, I'm suspecting, is that when you decide to make a go of it as a serious personality, in this case, an actrice, you drop the black scent, you stop wearing the hoodies, you let the hair down, and you, so to speak, clean it up. We even saw this with Sabrina Carpenter recently. She's got quite a hefty tan in all of her early promo and her first music videos, but then when she hit the Met Gala, she was so whitewashed, she looked so pale. It was interesting, and her hair even was even a lighter shade of blonde. It was like she'd also kind of dropped the cosplaying and was like, oh yeah, I'm a white woman for this, I'm gonna be cleaned up and I'm gonna look more professional. But the problem here is that we're equating looking professional with looking white, and that's what a lot of these stars end up platforming whenever they do this, and it really bothers me because Ariana's been doing this her whole career, and for a 31-year-old woman who already has a pretty hefty platform, why do you need to keep doing this? You're Italian, be Italian, we love Italians.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said is spot on. I do think that there is this association between whiteness and professionalism, which is obviously racist. But I do think that when people are thinking, okay, I might like to be nominated for an Academy Award now, then they do this retreat back to whiteness. And just the way our culture works, if you're a white woman, you're allowed to do that. Obviously, if you're a racialized person, that's something you can't do. And it's interesting because I feel like Ariana has received a lot less criticism for doing this than other celebrities.
Yeah.
Even other celebrities who are arguably racialized. I mean, Kim Kardashian, it's very complicated whether Armenian people are or aren't racialized. Although as an ethnicity, I mean, Armenians even like last year were the victims of some genocidal actions in part of the world. But she received a lot of criticism over the last few years for looking quote unquote whiter, and people referred to that as her return to whiteness, even though like actually her dad is Armenian, which is a Middle Eastern ethnicity.
Yeah.
And I feel like Ariana, for whatever reason, this criticism, it comes up, but it doesn't stick. It doesn't tarnish her reputation. And I find it interesting that she's immune to it. So maybe that is proof that she actually is white, because she seems to have white privilege when it comes to actually not being hindered by this type of criticism.
I love the way you came around and answered that on your own. I think you're absolutely right, because she's been so immune. And I feel like this conversation has only really existed in comments and YouTube videos and TikTok posts. And that's why I wanted to bring this out today, because her star is rising so rapidly. And I love her music. I think she's very talented. I want to see more. But I also think we have to address these things. We have to bring them out. And quite frankly, she doesn't need to be doing this. Why is she relying on it? That's something that I often question. And it doesn't sit right with me when I see a white celebrity putting on another culture. It just, why should it? Because you already have all these other privileges as a white woman. You don't need to put on this costume. It makes zero sense to me. It's offensive. Now we're going to turn a little bit back to a more fun side, because speaking of all of this, I can't not touch on this. Yes, Ariana's now starring in Wicked. This is huge. This is like, in this episode, I think it's one of the best trajectories we've covered, because she's done it all in such a short amount of time, and it's really built and built. This is her dream musical. As a kid, she used to say, I want to be in Wicked. Like, that's everything to me. She met Kristen Chenoweth, who originally played played Glinda in Wicked on the stage in New York, and she told her, like, this is what I want to do. I want to be you. And now she's doing it, and she and Kristen are friends. Like, it's incredible. She wanted to play Elphaba originally. That role is now played by Cynthia Erivo, and I think they're better matched this way. The two have become best friends, and they're both really magical in it. It's my favorite musical, so I had high expectations. I have to say, it's probably one of the most impressive adaptations I've ever seen. Go John M. Chu, the director, who's not getting enough credit for that. Sarah, have you seen it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a good job. I think a lot of the criticism he's received is a bit unfair. I think a lot of people went in wanting to dislike the movie, and I don't know why. Some people just won't admit that they hate musicals, right?
Yeah, and not only that, I think a lot of musical fans were like, you're going to ruin this beautiful thing we've had for decades, which I can understand to some degree. But they didn't ruin it. They made
No,
it
I
even
don't think they
better.
ruined it either. And I mean, it's been criticized by some people for not looking in terms of the filmic language like The Wizard of Oz, but it's also Wicked, right? And Wicked, if you go see the musical, doesn't, in my opinion, look exactly like The Wizard of Oz in terms of its color palette. So that's why it doesn't look like The Wizard of Oz. Like, it was made for the theater kids who love Wicked. It wasn't made for fans of Wizard of Oz. That's my take. And anybody who wanted it to be more Oz-like, I mean, I am sympathetic to that disappointment that you must feel when you get to the movies and you don't have that experience. But that wasn't what the mission was. That wasn't the assignment.
No. And by the way, I keep saying this, but Wizard of Oz is a very dark story and was borderline a really intense and kind of scary drama. And I would say Wicked is really fits in those lines. It's also quite tragic and dark. But yes, listen, it shouldn't be winning an Oscar for lighting. Okay, fine. But I actually still think it's quite beautiful. I don't know. Maybe I was blinded by how much I loved everything else about it. But okay, and all the press coverage, and we discussed this a little bit last week in Hot Off the Press. So go listen to that if you want a little bit more on this. But this press tour and this movie has got so many folks questioning why both Cynthia and Ariana appear to be so thin. So we're jumping back into that body image conversation that's kind of followed Ariana for much of her career. I think for me, and again, we talked about this before, but what makes it so complicated is that Ariana recently said she's the healthiest that she's ever been. It's hard to square that with the way that she looks. I'm spending much of this movie not being able to look away from the fact that I can see their bones when I shouldn't be able to. I'm sorry, I have to say it. I have to put it out there. In a recent interview just this past week, Ariana addressed the criticism saying, quote, "I've kind of been doing this in front of the public and been a specimen in petri dish since I was 16 or 17, so I've heard it all. I've heard every version of it, of what's wrong with me, and then you fix it and then it's wrong for different reasons, but that's everything from even just the simplest thing, your appearance. It's not welcome. I have work to do. I have a life to live. I have friends to love on. I have so much love, and it's not invited, so I don't leave space for it anymore." Now, she also added that she knows she's beautiful. She has a really strong support system. And I hear that, and I think all of that is true. And I think a lot of the time, we, me included, tend to forget that celebrities aren't in a certain pressure cooker that a lot of us can't relate to. And I'm really sorry to keep picking at this, but I still find it a little bit troubling. I think that we should be able to talk about these things because Ariana has very young fans. And if you're going to go on TikTok that has a very young demographic saying that you are very healthy and you're fine and you look like that, it's just hard for me to digest it. But I don't know if maybe, sir, should I be blaming the system? Should I not be coming at Ariana? How do you look at it?
I know it's hard because if people have eating disorders, and I'm not saying she does, I don't know, I'm not her, I'm not her doctor, you don't really want to shame them for it. But also, if you're right, like in terms of media literacy, we do need to encourage young people to realize that even if Ariana Grande by some miracle is healthy at the size she is, and that's possible, I'm not saying it isn't, that doesn't mean you have to starve yourself to be that way, because a lot of people can't achieve that without a serious eating disorder. So I do think it's a conversation we need to have. And it is troubling that Hollywood is going back to this thin as in. Like, I am totally supportive of there being thin people in the media. I just want body diversity. I want a spectrum of bodies. And that's what we're starting to see less and less of. And it's all tied in with, the rise of Ozempic and so many other things. But I agree with you. It's hard to have the conversation. However, my 4-year-old will talk about people being fat.
Yeah.
So, and that's because she's picking it up at school, and that's people have taught her those words, and people have taught her to use it pejoratively, and I haven't. So I'm assuming she's getting it from the culture, not from me. So we have to have these conversations, even if they're difficult to have.
Yeah, so much is said about how great it is that we get to see a Black woman play Elphaba, and absolutely, because I think that's the whole point of the story. But I don't think we should stop there. I think we have to keep going. What is the next limit and boundary that we can break, right?
Yeah. And you know what that reminds me of? The comedian Catherine Ryan, whom I have mixed feelings about her, but she has a really good bit about how, yes, it is revolutionary that you have Meghan Markle, who's a racialized Duchess, right? She's like, yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And she's like, wouldn't it also be revolutionary to have a Duchess who's allowed to eat, right? And that's her commentary on how thin everyone in the royal family has to be, right? The pressure on Kate and Meghan to be skinny. So I was like, oh, that's actually like, you're right. Yes, that would also be revolutionary.
Yes.
So I think like we can have all these conversations. Like we can have an analysis of this movie and say, yeah, it's great that Cynthia Erivo was cast. She's super talented. It's great that she's there. It also would really be awesome if we could see a fuller figured Elphaba at some point, right? Because body diversity is something that Hollywood was kind of doing better on in terms of body shape, and now that progress seems to be disappearing.
Yes, yeah, and kind of my only issue with this movie too was that her sister Nessa, who is in a wheelchair, I feel like the way that the movie captured that makes it feel like that's still a problem, and I think the musical was so much better at saying no, it's not a problem, it's actually beautiful in itself. So all of these other elements, we need to turn to them too. It's not just one thing, and maybe that's annoying to hear all of the time, but that's why we do this show, so we can call these things out. And just for a little tiny plug, I wrote about this at length for the Globe and Mail this week, so go check that out if you want to hear more, because I know Sarah will agree with me on all those facts. And also because we mention media literacy a lot, I write more about what exactly that means. For instance, and if parents are listening and you've got kids and you want to know how to tackle this, it's a lot about telling them, look at who is saying what, why they're saying it. If we're talking about an Instagram or a TikTok post, are filters being used? Are there certain things that are tagged? All of these things count as being more media literate, and it makes a difference. It really, really does. It actually, to a considerable percentage, has changed the way young women view themselves, and they tend to have a better body image because they have more media literacy. So there's reasons for this, is what we're saying. Now, finally, this brings us to our last segment. Hindsight is 2024, where we choose the one moment that we might have handled differently if we were the subject of this story. Personally, it is very hard for me to pick one thing, as is often the case. I think the thing that's been nagging at me the most lately is I just want Ariana to be her Italian self. I want her to own her Sicilian heritage. I want her to wave that Italian flag. Come on, girl. You come from a wonderful place, okay? Own it. Sarah, what about you? Sarah also has some bone to pick with the licking donut incident, I believe, which we didn't address.
Yeah, I don't think she should have licked donuts. It's unsanitary. I do sometimes wonder if she won't proudly say she's Italian because she didn't want to be compared to Lady Gaga. Like Lady Gaga broke just a few years before her, and I think she was probably worried about being seen as a Lady Gaga ripoff. That's, I think, part of it. I think it was strategic, that distancing. But yes, she shouldn't be licking donuts. Also, just like, why did you have to take up with SpongeBob? Right? Like, this man is SpongeBob. He was married, he just had a baby, but it's not even like he is Brad Pitt level sexy. And I think Brad Pitt, I'm not a fan. He has an FBI file for a reason. He hit his wife. But having said that, he is a sexy man. Why are you being tempted to break up a family for SpongeBob SquarePants? Like, Ariana, why is this a sport to you, right? Like, it's almost like she gets off on the absurdity of it. Like, oh, obviously SpongeBob won't be able to resist me. Like, no, of course he won't. Of course he won't. He's SpongeBob.
It's performance art. Also, and this is not a spoiler, okay? Maybe it is for some people, but I don't think it is. In Wicked, he plays one of the little nerds who's so in love with Glinda from behind the scenes and vies for her. And just, of course, you'd never put those two together, which is hilarious because I watched the whole thing being like, they're together. They killed a 10-year marriage to be together. It's so confounding. I mean, listen, I think this is also theater kid history that they're making here because these two are the most theater kid of anybody I've ever seen potentially. So maybe he's actually the most sensical person she's ever picked.
I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like she should have resisted him.
Yeah.
Come on. She is so rich at this point that she can just pay a therapist to walk around with her and tell her, don't date that man. Don't date him. Don't date him. Honestly, that is what she should do. When you get to a certain level of wealth, you have no excuse to make serious life decisions that aren't good because you could pay someone to walk around with you and say, no, not today.
I love that, Sarah. Yes, amen. And on that note, that beautiful note, we are at the end of this episode. Thank you to our editor, Evan Wexler. And of course, thank you to all you listeners. We love you so much. You can listen to more of The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Stefsan. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me at Sahagian Sarah on Instagram. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. It really helps us. And if you'd like us to keep growing, we would love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. So thank you so much for listening.